Hi, I'm Tom Field, Vice President of Editorial with Information Security Media Group. I'm talking about revolution today, the digital revolution and the fraud revolution. Joining me, my pleasure to introduce Ricardo Villadiego, is the CEO of Easy Solutions. Ricardo, it's a pleasure to see you again.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Every time we sit down and talk, fraud has changed. Think about everything, the digital revolution, millennials entering the business. So much of our communication is happening online with mobile devices right now. How do these factors and ones I haven't even mentioned sort of affect the areas of fraud for the financial institutions that you deal with?
Well, Tom, I think the digital revolution is changing everything, and the increased number of digital transactions and in general digital interactions is most definitely making the problem worse than it used to be. I often tell C-level executives that every customer action creates a fraudster reaction. And this is especially true during these digital transformation stages. I think criminals will go where there is anything from value to be taken, sure. And it could be money, or it could be credentials, or it could truly be anything that they can monetize later. As this problem becomes more pervasive, we see organizations, and especially financial institutions, being challenged by the second.
I like that line, every customer action results in a fraudster reaction. That's good.
It is true. I mean, that's what we see happening every time. I usually also tell my customers that they shouldn't be so focused on looking for best of breed solution for pieces or parts of the problem.
Right.
We see customers sometimes desperately looking for a best of breed solution that is going to, in their mentality, fit the fraud problems that they have. The truth is that throughout the evolution of Easy Solutions, we have validated that it is one of the most ineffective ways to fight back fraud. It is much more better to look at the whole problem, to deploy solutions that effectively becomes a deterrent to the fraud problems today and in the future.
Ricardo, none of these factors we talked about were surprises. You could see the digital revolution coming. You could see millennials up and coming, the use of mobile. And yet it doesn't seem like banks have been particularly proactive about defense. Do you agree?
That's a good question. I totally agree with that. I also see a shift in the mindset. But let me start by answering your question. I think the banks are lacking of strategy and future forward thinking when it comes to fraud prevention. And I do believe that fraud is undeniable, one of the biggest differentiators upon which businesses can evolve. And it deserves the C-level commitment to deploy well thought out and intentionally designed fraud prevention strategies.
Mm-hmm. Now you have the opportunity to see lots of different financial institutions. If you were to generalize, where do you see them missing the mark when it comes to preventing fraud?
Well, but again, it is the future looking forward, right? I believe that the institutions that are not intentionally designing strategies to fight back fraud are going to become larger targets for fraudsters. And it's one of the things that institutions should take carefully these days. My recommendation to the institutions, it's not only to day one start looking for solutions that look at the problem as a whole, but also to incorporate the concept of intentional fraud design. I think every time institutions are thinking into a new product, institutions are thinking into a new feature that they want to deploy in their transactional channels, they should include that concept of how fraud prevention is going to play along the lines of the new products and solutions that they are deploying.
Ricardo, do you have optimism? Do you see financial institutions starting to get more proactive when it comes to defending against fraud?
I do see that, Tom. I believe that there is a change in the mindset and it's happening everywhere. It's happening in community banks, in mid-level banks, in top 25 financial institutions, and 500 enterprises.
Yep.
I do believe that finally the institutions have realized that more time and effort invested in fraud prevention becomes a differentiator for their business, becomes truly a foundation upon which their businesses can evolve. So it is something that we're seeing lately.
And how is Easy Solutions helping institutions to be more proactive?
Well, I've been long time in this business,
Yes.
as you may know, and we've been very fortunate to evolve this company from a small vendor to protecting more than 385 financial institutions in the world, and protecting under the umbrella of these 385 institutions more than 100 millions of end users. So clearly one of the things that we're being evangelizing to the institution is to be proactive. Mm-hmm. It's stop the reactive models operandi, because in fraud that's not going to last for a long time. Stop looking for the so-called best of breed solutions, and instead of that, look for technologies that are able to defeat the problem from the beginning to the end. You've been watching Easy Solutions for a long time. Sure. As well, and you know that I'm a believer of the fraud cycle, and I believe that the fact that a fraudulent transaction is happening now is just a realization that the bad guys have been able to go from planning to monetizing to cashing out. So if institutions only focus on a part of the problem, that deployment is a deployment. It's not gonna last long in time. But if institutions look at constantly deploy technologies that will defeat the problem from the beginning to the end, they have more chances to continue to evolve and to continue to deploy protection regardless of the evolution of the bad guys. So be proactive. Number two, intentionally design fraud prevention strategies. Intentionally fraud prevention strategies is the concept upon which new developments will occur to continue to defeat the bad guys.
So for a lot of institutions, especially larger ones, this is a sea change. It's a significant change. Short term, what should organizations be looking to do?
Short term, organizations should look at monitor externally threats. Those threats that are beyond the perimeter, and it should include not only web, but also email, social media, and mobile applications. The bad guys are contaminating every digital interaction that enterprises have with their end user. And you won't believe it, but I believe they're failing to grasp the effect that external threats and fraud attacks have in their companies, in their end users, in their brands, their reputation, and ultimately the bottom line. I do believe that if institutions start thinking more into how the fraud prevention technology is helping to evolve their business, to enable their business, to enable more digital interactions, and ultimately more transactions, they're going to be safe in the long term, not only from fraud, but from the business point of view too.
Ricardo, well said. Always a pleasure to catch up with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom. It's always a pleasure being with you.
Been talking about the digital evolution and the fraud evolution. I've been speaking with Ricardo Villadiego, CEO of Easy Solutions. For Information Security Media Group, I'm Tom Field. Thank you very much.